Hey guys, it's been a little while since I've done a musical review, so here we go. So recently I saw The Waves at the Powerhouse Theater at Vassar College in Poughkeepsie, New York, and I saw it 4 times from July 26th through July 28th. And I do want to give a quick shout out to my friend Carolyn, who actually gave me her ticket for the sold out Saturday night show for The Waves. This musical was based on the 1931 novel by Virginia Woolf. And admittedly, I haven't read the book. I do have it, but I haven't read it yet. I'm just a terrible book reader, so I'll just get that out of the way. But this musical has been in the works for almost 30 years, according to the Q&A that I went to at the Saturday matinee. And originally it was done by David Bucknam, the late David Bucknam, and Lisa Peterson. And after he passed, it was Adam Guan who added additional lyrics and music to the musical. I will say that despite not having read the book, it was clear and concise. I understood everything, well, almost everything that was going on. There's like a couple things I had to ask people about. But for the most part, I understood it, and that's the most important thing, is an understandability of a musical, even if you've never read the works. I did the same thing for Great Comet, and this is more understandable than the Great Comet, even though I love the Great Comet. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I liked the music. I liked the cast, and part of the reason why I saw it was originally Raul Esparza, of course, surprise, surprise, was creative consultant. So I was like, well, let me get a ticket because I have to support something he loves, and I know he's mentioned that this is one of his most favorite books in the world. And then later on, after I bought a ticket, which was originally the Saturday matinee, he was added on to the cast. Let me talk about the plot real quick. There's going to be some spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, click out of this video because it's going to be spoil heavy. So the book deals with the lives of these 6 people, and their names are Neville Bernard, Susan Lewis, Rhoda, and Ginny. And it deals with their lives growing up in the nursery and then boarding school and then either going to college or working on a farm or working in the major city in London. Oh yeah, and this does take place in England, but I will discuss that later on. And so as the book progresses, they get older, their lives get complicated. They go from childhood innocence to, a little bit of troublemaking when they're older, as one does, and then, finding their way in life. And there is like this subplot with this musical of their love and affection and how they admired this one guy named Percival. They just loved this guy, but he was never in their group of friends. He was like always outside of it. He was their son to their earth. It was like very weird. Like they never really talked to him, but or a couple of the girls like dated him and stuff, or they almost dated him or almost married him, but they went on their own separate ways. But he was never really in their world. He was just always on the outside of it. You get into when they become young adults, and then they become adults, and then older, and then eventually death. There is a part where Bernard is like, I don't know if these people exist or they do, and there is that part where it's up to you if they all existed in his mind, because Bernard, even though it's kind of weird, he's not the main character, but he is a storyteller, and every now and then he would break into narration to like towards the beginning and towards the end and a little bit in the middle. Halfway through, or a little bit towards the second half of this musical, Percival dies, and what also dies is their past, because Percival linked them to the childhood innocence and everything else. And the guy dies in like India falling off a horse, and I'm like, yikes. Basically, that's the whole book, is just the interactions between all these characters and their admiration for this guy. And oh yeah, and spoiler alert, Rhoda, she kills herself. She throws herself off a cliff in Spain. She was just like depressed about everything going on, and she just couldn't handle it, and she just didn't know what else to do, and she just tossed herself off. I really enjoyed like how they told this story. What was really cool, I thought was innovative, was how the story progressed as a where the sun was. So when they were born, it was basically when the sun was rising, like the nursery. And when they're a little bit older, it's like morning, like when they're kids, it's the beginning of the day, and the day is fresh and new. And then towards noon, they're like teenagers, getting to know themselves. And then later in the day, they become like college-bound young adults. And then the towards the end and the sunrise or sunset, sorry, they are adults, and then eventually death. I really enjoyed how the time progressed. It was linear, but not, if that makes sense. And also, related to that, the clothing designs for this. So when they're little kids, like there's like no kids or anything involved, but so it's adults pretending to be kids. So when they're basically brand new born, like getting their first memories, they're all dressed in white. There's nothing fancy or anything about their clothes. They just their shirts are all untucked, or their dresses are all very flowy and white. Everyone was wearing whites. Yeah, and I really enjoyed the symbolism of that. When they become little kids, like I noticed this mostly with Bernard, because he's played by Raul Esparza. He gains suspenders, and then when they're older, when they go to boarding school, he gains a tie, and so do the other boys. The girls start getting like cardigans. When they become like college bound, or just adults or young adults, they add more colors, they add more grays and blacks. And then adults, they're wearing a lot of black, so the white is going away, the innocence is going away, and just becoming full-grown adults. And that one was especially true for Rhoda, because when she jumps off the cliff, like she climbs the cliff, and she's wearing all black, like she's already ready for her funeral. She was wearing basically a funeral dress. And for the set design, it was simple, but it didn't really need any more. It was basically and I'll show a picture up here of the stage, but it was like the stage, and then the only other set pieces that they had was the chairs that represented not only chairs, but cliffs, tables hanging off the pier overlooking the ocean. I think like walls and stuff, especially when they were like in college, like in Cambridge. And also like suitcases when they were going to school. The only thing I remember is the cricket bats when they were in school. Oh, when the boys were in school. And also the piano was also used as part of the set. So like, especially with Bernard, he would use it to stand down. The lighting. Let me talk about the lighting. The lighting for this was awesome. They used a lot of different lights. So they would use lights for representing the water and cars going past, and when they're going into the woods or visiting Elvedon, the lights would change either green or different colors, or just different wavy type things. And also they used the lights for when the sun was rising to midday, and then later on in the evening. Kind of reminded me of Carousel, how they did that too, just as well. And also with the set design, as I said before, it was simple, but it was the picture of the ocean, and Rachel Hawk, who's the scenic designer, she was inspired by this Japanese photographer who would take pictures of the ocean, so she did the same and incorporated it as the background. And then you had the front stairs, but represent also the sandy beaches and stuff in England. The front of the stage also represented like city sidewalks and buildings, and everything in between. And it was simple, but it was really thought out. This wasn't the type of musical that you need like a really elaborate set design, because it was all there for you. There's a thing where it says sometimes less is more, and that definitely worked for this musical. As for like the setting is definitely England, especially when they grew up in the country estate. But nobody used English accents. There was no accents at all. And I'm kind of grateful that they did that, because sometimes people are either really good at English accents or they're really bad. There's no in between. Like, this guy's all right with them. No, it's either really good or really bad. So they left that alone, and I'm really grateful that they did that. And as for the music part, it was really, really good. I really enjoyed, like, especially the innocence, and I could not stop talking about Baby Bernard. Like, honestly, out of everybody, just Baby Bernard by himself, like baby and child, but I'm just gonna call him Baby Bernard, including the child Bernard. I'll just call him Baby Bernard. Anyway, the songs for that were really fun, and like you can tell, like full of childhood innocence, especially like when Bernard was going to Elvedon, but then you had like Lewis pretending to be a tree so Ginny couldn't find him, and she eventually finds him. I really like the comedic timing in this musical. Raoul's always good with comedic timing, but Lauren is really excellent, and I forgot to mention the cast. So let me give that a real quick read. So you had Ken Barnett as Neville, Raul Esparza as Bernard, Alicia Gamble as Susan, Douglas Lyons as Lewis, Alice Ripley as Rhoda, and Lauren Worsham as Ginny. And the cast was really, really good. Like they couldn't have found better people for each of their roles, because like Neville was the warrior, Bernard is the storyteller, Susan is laid back. Lewis, he's more of the go-getter, gotta get the straight A's always. Rhoda is more the realistic person of the group, and Ginny is just always high on life. Like, everything is amazing to Ginny. Even when she was an adult, even when she was, like, kind of hoity-toity, if that makes sense, everything was just amazing to her. It was just excellent musical, and I couldn't get enough. And I also need to talk about their musical director, who was Matt Almond. This guy, he should honestly be considered the seventh main player in this musical, because this guy, not only is he directing this musical, doing this number, he's also playing the piano while directing these guys at the same time. And this guy was like such a madman. And I love pianists that do that, because, my favorite is Ben Folds, and he, not a musical director per se, but, he's always playing and doing different things. So it was kind of like weird, like you would try to pay attention to him, but then you're trying to pay attention to the main people on stage. One of my favorite parts in this musical was when Bernard was going through the Byron set, and he was like, "No, I have some music thing in my head," and he's like shooing the pianist away, and Matt just gets up from his seat, and he's like. And then Raoul's Bernard starts playing the piano. And what was awesome, too, was because I know Raoul mentioned this before, but especially in company when he has to play, like, the piano for, like, a little bit, how he used to always have to look at the keys. But he didn't have to look at the keyboard at all. I mean, he actually played, and he played with confidence. And because I know that's his, like, a little bit of a weakness, because he doesn't play really instruments, really, or that I know of. He did not once really look at the keyboard. I mean, there was, like, I think one show that I attended, maybe he glanced at it a little bit, like he would look down, but he would play, and then he did his, like, literally, like, 2 chords. As soon as he hopped off the piano, Matt would jump back in and play, and then Matt would be like, he would, like, stare at him and, like, glare at him, and they would, like, exchange looks, like, real quick. It was really fun. That was, like, one of my other favorite parts in that musical. But it was really cool to see different changes I didn't see major changes. I know some people who saw the show early on noticed later changes with this musical by other means, but there was like little bits. There's like little lyric changes. Like they kept adding towards, especially with Rhoda, they would add more and more and more stuff to her, and I'm like, oh my god, how does Alice remember all this stuff? I'd be like, oh Lord, she's like during that Q&A, she's like, I had fun with it, it's just it keeps you on top of your game. And they definitely were on top of their game. I wish it was still going, but unfortunately it ended on the 29th because it ran through the 19th through the 29th. I would have seen the earlier versions for this, like the 19th and whatever, but I was actually in San Diego for Comic-Con, so there's no way. But I did get to see mostly towards the end. I didn't get to see the ending show because I take care of dogs, so I have to do adulting. But it was really fun seeing, and I saw it 4 times in a row, so maybe fifth time would have been crazy, but then seeing it 4 times was probably crazy, and they saw my happy shining face in the audience. But really, really fun. As for the stage door report, it I did get to meet everybody, but it was like on different days. So like when I got my playbill signed by almost everybody, I wish I got it signed by Matt, but I didn't. But I got it signed by Lisa and Adam and all the main guys. And the stage door was a little bit weird because it was either in the lobby or outside. And I mean, everybody was cool. Nobody was like acting nuts or anything. Especially, I mean, even including the Q&A, like Raul like stopped for some reason and he was like hanging out by like the edge of the stage, and then I saw other people meeting him and I was like, I'm gonna meet him too, because this one was actually important for me because I am from Poughkeepsie. I was basically born and raised there, but right now I live across the river. But it was still a short trek for me, but it was really important for me to see this and also to meet Raul because he's one of my idols, like big time idols. And it was just important for me to see him in my hometown. It was just so cool. I'm like, somebody that I love is in Poughkeepsie. The only other person that I loved that was in Poughkeepsie was Weird Al. So there's that little bit of info. But he was like, as always, like whenever he's meeting fans, when he had time, there was like other days that he couldn't because, friends and family, or it was like late at night, so he wasn't able to. And which is totally understandable because it's by the time it ends, it's like late at night and it's Poughkeepsie. I know I'm knocking on my own hometown, but it's Poughkeepsie, sorry. But he finally did on the matinee, and of course he's always so gracious, and he whenever you talk to him, even briefly, he always treats you like you're the only person there. And I did get my picture with him up here. He signed my thing, and he also signed my Comic-Con badge from 2014 because that was the first time I ever saw Raul in anything. Well, the first time I saw him live for the Hannibal panel in 2014. But kind of odd too because I wasn't then a fan of his. I was just like, oh, I know him on Hannibal, cool. Now I'm a fan of his, of course. Totally cool, totally fine, totally fun. I wish it was still playing because I would have totally recommended people. Even if you never read the book, it's totally understandable. It's linear. There's nothing really too confusing. I always compare it to Great Comet, but Great Comet was a little bit more crazy and everywhere. Even though it's fun and awesome, but it was confusing. This one, it really wasn't. If I could rate it, I'd probably give it an 85 or a 90 out of 100. But that's it for this review. I do have other reviews in the future because I am planning to see Once on This Island, the musical, and the play Fire in Dreamland, and then Be More Chill, which and then once or on a clear day you can see Forever. And what else am I seeing? I'm seeing Pretty Woman because Andy Carl and Orfeo, of course. And I am seeing, there's a lot I'm seeing when I'm going to New York for the next few days. What else am I seeing? Oh, I'm seeing SpongeBob again, and I am seeing 12th Night. So I will be doing all these reviews for all these plays and musicals that I just mentioned, except for SpongeBob, because I've seen it before and I've already done a written review. So that's what's coming up for me for this review channel. Until then, bye!